In this tutorial, we'll quickly go over the main functions and modes of BroDynamics. To open BroDynamics, go to Bro Tools, Animation Tools, then BroDynamics. The window is dockable, like many other windows in Bro Tools, so you can place it anywhere in Maya. BroDynamics has multiple simulation modes to handle different tasks, which you can find in this dropdown. Hover your mouse over any mode, and you will be presented with a tooltip and a GIF showcasing what it does. Let's start playing around with the tools we have. Let's start with the basics, adding secondary motion to this fox's ears. Switch to chain simulation mode. Select the character's ears. I prefer to bake simulation to a new layer, so I will tick the new animation layer checkbox. And now just click the big simulate button. Good, I like what we got with default settings. However, I would like the first selected object to also be animated. We can do this by unchecking the fixed base checkbox over here. Now remove the layer, or use the overwrite previous layer checkbox and simulate again. You can use chain mode for ears, tails, arms, really for any chain of transforms, whether it is FK, IK, or spline IK. Next, let's look at point simulation mode. Switch to it here in the dropdown. I want to use it on Fox's hips control to make its movement more natural. Select the hips control and let's hit simulate. Good, but we can make it better. Let's play around with stiffness and damping settings. Point mode is primarily used for translation spring motion, so it is really useful for hips, floating objects, eye controls, and things like that. However, it also has some extra features that make it useful for soft body and cloth simulations, but it's out of scope of this tutorial. Nice. Then we can use noise mode to add some natural irregularities to the movement. I'll start with default settings. In here you can specify which attributes you want noise to be applied to. That's right, noise and attribute spring modes can be used on any numeric attribute in Maya that can be animated. That is way too strong. We can fix it by adjusting the settings here, or simply by reducing the weight of the animation layer. Noise is a simple but very powerful tool that can make any animation look more natural, or it can be used to animate any kind of shaking, like character that is freezing. It can also be used to add shakiness to camera movement, especially with its octave settings, which creates, like, multiple layers of noise. Let's also quickly look at the new thrower mode. Here, our fox is throwing an apple. Let's see how we can use BroDynamics to help us simulate the apple flying and falling on the ground. First, we need a collider. BroDynamics can use any mesh as a collider, and it also has tools to create collision meshes. Open the collider generator, select the mesh, and click Generate. We could actually just use the apple mesh as collider. BroDynamics will create a collider shape under the hood anyway, but this way you can control the quality and shape of the collider. Now we have a collision mesh. Go to Thrower, select the collider and the control object, and link them. This tells BroDynamics to use this mesh shape as a collider for the selected control. Thrower also has different collider modes. You can read more about them in documentation. Now we need to add objects the apple will collide with. These are called static or kinematic objects. Just select the meshes and add them to colliders list. Now all you have to do is animate the apple up to the point where it's thrown. Choose a start frame and hit simulate to watch it fly. You can adjust various settings to control how the object moves and bounces until you are happy with the result. For example, here I definitely need to increase the number of substeps because the object is moving too fast and clips through the collider. I will also play around with some damping, bounce, and contact damping settings and adjust the trajectory of the throw until it looks good to me. Thrower calculates the initial velocity based on first 2 frames of the animation range. Here I'm adjusting the trajectory of the throw. It was throwing it a bit off to the side because of how the object moved in the first 2 frames of the animation. Now, I don't like how it spins after the bounce. Let's see if angular damping can help. Well, looks like that's not enough. Let's reduce the spin in the initial animation. Only animate the movement in those 2 frames. What about mass? Oops, no, definitely not that. BroDynamics has its own physics engine. It focuses on artistic control and ease of use, and has attributes like contact damping, which you may not find in other physics engines. Contact damping can reduce the speed and angular velocity of object on collision beyond what's typically considered physically correct, but it allows you to precisely control the simulation and even create effects like sticking or objects falling into something like sand. Awkward silence. I just wanted to leave this part in so you can see the iteration process of working on a simulation in BroDynamics. One more simulation mode worth mentioning is the attribute spring. It can be useful in many cases, most importantly when you want to add springy motion to attributes other than transformation or rotation. It has no spatial awareness and operates solely on animation curve data, and it can be applied to any numerical attribute, from scale to light intensity or camera FOV. Here, I've applied it to the squash and stretch scale of the Fox model. Now I'm going to apply it to the light intensity. Just enter the attribute name you want to simulate the spring on. And here's the camera FOV. If you don't remember the parameter name off the top of your head, you can always change its value and then look at the script editor log. It always shows all value changes and attribute names. Copy the attribute name into the field and simulate. I hope this tutorial was a good overview of the basics of working with BroDynamics. As usual, feel free to reach out via email or Discord if you have any questions.